Good afternoon or morning or evening, wherever you are dialing in from. We will also be sending out the recording of this session this afternoon. My name is Amy Major. I'm one of the MBA recruitment and admission managers here at Said, and it's a real pleasure this afternoon to be joined by just a few of our current students that represent our cohort of 329 students that started with us just 4 weeks ago. Albeit they're only in 2 weeks into their MBA curriculum, having had orientation and a week of fun-filled week, action-packed week of engagement with the Career Development Centre. So thank you for dialing in today. What we really want to give you to this afternoon is a real sort of sense of the experience so far from our panel that we have joining us. So obviously they're very much at the beginning of their intense 1-year MBA experience here at Said, but we'll have lots to share with you all around how they came to be here, the sort of journey to Said, their application process that they went through, and obviously I'm sure you're really keen to hear their experiences and insights so far. So obviously we will welcome questions from the audience as well. So if you're thinking of things as we go through the Q&A that I'll be hosting, please do send them over and we'll endeavour to get as many of those questions answered within the 45 minutes to hour that we have this afternoon. But perhaps to get us started, thank you to the 4 of you for joining us. I know you have a very packed schedule every day, so but perhaps we could go around and have the 4 of you introduce yourselves to everybody here. So Veronica, do you want to get us started?
Sure. Hi everyone, my name is Veronica Mingrown. I'm originally from Brazil, but spent most of my life in Miami and was in New York most recently before coming here to Oxford. My background is in public relations and marketing. So I previously worked in a marketing analytics function for Fortune 500 companies, and joining the MBA to make a career switch out of that.
Excellent.
Hello everyone, I am Bhaskar Pandey from India. Prior to coming here, I was working in Tata Motors in their business finance division for 4.5 years. Before that, I was in a more technical job, engineering job in a power plant. So I did make a career switch before also. And for the past 4 years, I was working mainly in handling one of the business finance function of one of the lines of business of Tata Motors in India. So last year, I was attending one of these webinars. So I can understand what you feel, what you are going through. So welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Ahmed Al-Hamawi. I am Egyptian. I was based in Qatar the past 7 years. My experience is investment banking, and hopefully post MBA I'm looking to either start my own business or grow my own business or get into private equity.
Hi everyone, my name is Barbara. I'm from Brazil. I've lived there my whole life so far. I'm a lawyer. I'm slightly older than my colleagues here. I'm 34 years old. I have 14 years of professional experience, and while in Brazil, prior coming to Oxford, I was a partner in a law firm, and I worked mostly with public law, specifically infrastructure and construction contracts. And I do love the industry and I loved what I did, but I thought it was just time for a shift, and here I am starting this shift.
Excellent. I think what's fabulous, and hopefully you've heard there, that obviously we could by design put together a panel of people that are very different. But, these are 4 people that came to me straight away when we did the invite for the webinar today, and just by virtue of the diversity of the cohort we have here at Said, you can see 4 people that have, all completely different, professional backgrounds, are coming to this with different years of experience and are all looking to do different things. And I think that's, an important thing that we want to leave you with the message of today, that everybody has sort of a very kind of personal journey. So I'd love to kind of like get us chatting about, you've talked sort of, there were a couple of comments around pivot, switching, you're all coming at this from a very different lens. What sort of got you sort of going into why an MBA and sort of coming to the point of applying. I think that's always quite personal from one person to the next. So
Yeah.
Good.
Yes. Okay. So unlike Barbara, I only had 3 years professional experience prior to the MBA, and what was interesting for me is working in a marketing analytics function. I just realized that the work that we were trying to prove the value of, I had never taken a business class in college, so I had absolutely no background in accounting and finance and any of the things that we're learning here. So the MBA just kind of seemed like the right fit in terms of any master's program that I could be joining. The switch came about mostly in the fact that since high school, I've been on my student newspaper. I declared my major the first week of college. I never switched. And I think I was fully intending on pursuing marketing after graduation, but being here and just seeing the variety of industries you could be exposed to and kind of having that idea that, Oxford is a launch pad for anywhere, really opened my mind. And I just kind of want to see what's out there before really truly committing to going back to where I came from.
Okay, excellent. Anybody else have anything?
Yeah, sure. So I have a bit of the opposite experience. My undergrad was in finance. I'm a CFA charter holder. I've been doing financial advisory and investment banking for 7 years. So I thought it was time to widen my experience a bit. So learning about operations, tech, negotiations, all the stuff that I'm not exposed to in my job. And also, I think one of the main things was the diversity of the cohort. To get even investment banking in Qatar is different than in the US, than in Latin America, than in Europe. So being in a class that's so diverse with people with all different years of experience coming from different places is the best learning in my opinion.
Well, for me, so what I wanted when I started to think about making a shift, it wasn't clear at the beginning what was I going to do, but I knew that I wanted to change because I wanted some international exposure. So being in Brazil my whole life, I kind of felt like handicapped, like I needed to get some personal experience in another country. And I also wanted to build a career that is more flexible, because being a lawyer in Brazil only basically allowed me to be a lawyer in Brazil, and that kind of bothered me. I truly want to build a career that allows me to go anywhere life takes me. And also I wanted to build up some different knowledge. My education was really strict in law. I have 2 other masters in law, and I felt like I needed to learn more about business things, because eventually it all comes to business. Even as a partner of my law firm, I felt like I didn't have enough background even to run my own firm. So yeah, so all of these things together, I thought that the MBA would be the perfect first step.
Okay.
Same as Barbara. My major focus was to get international exposure. I had a great job, I had a great role, but I was not getting that international exposure. And I realized in the long run, I want to get into a CXO position. So I need that international exposure, and the diversity of the class here at SAID is great. I mean, there are people from 64 countries, and so you get to learn a lot from people who are coming from diverse background and diverse geographies. So I think in that perspective, my mission was fulfilled by getting into Oxford.
Excellent. So when it came, we sort of talked a bit there about, the sort of the why MBA piece to kind of, and in for the most part, it's sort of to broaden or to internationalize. But clearly, there's a lot of options out there globally. The MBA marketplace is huge. What specifically brought you to Said? I'd be really keen if we could share some insights there.
So I wanted to come to Europe in the first place. So any American schools were not really in the landscape for me. But my first thought was INSEAD, only because my partner had gone to INSEAD, so that was just the obvious first thing to look. And actually, I got to know about Oxford's program when I was visiting INSEAD last year. And then this girl, we were talking on the way back, and she was like, "Well, I'm applying to INSEAD, but what I really want is Oxford. You should check their program. It's amazing. I think you're gonna love it. You know, by like all the stuff you're telling me, you just seemed like the perfect fit to Oxford. Check that out." So I did, and now I'm here. And this girl, she's actually in my class and in my section. So it's just
Okay. So she's got a job in recruiting and admissions when she finishes.
Oh, she did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. But she hadn't applied. Like she didn't know she was applying to INSEAD and Oxford, and that's what she told me to do.
Well, this sounds like a story of Saeed's gain. So
It
yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, so I also did not want to go to a US program. Having gone to school in the States and living there most of my life, I just felt like the life experience that I would get in Europe would be just completely different. But also just a little bit more practically, programs in Europe are 1 year for the most part, whereas in the States they are 2 minimum. So in terms of just like the time commitment, the financial commitment, all of that, it just made a lot of sense. There was very few downsides of moving here. So, and I think the only downside really is just the pound and the conversion rate between that and the dollar. Like that's like really the only differentiator. So with that being the only negative side of coming to Europe in general, like that just seemed like an obvious answer. Why Oxford specifically? I did get into other schools abroad, but I think the program diversity, not to harp on that, but everyone here is incredibly diverse. And I think Oxford itself, just in general, going to a school that I think when you go on campus, that it just feels right. And the more you learn about it, the more you get excited by the long hours and the opportunities and all of that, then that's the program for you. And for me, everything I read about Oxford just kind of confirmed I wanted to go here. Nothing ever seemed even remotely out of place.
So I got into an Ivy League business school in US, and I had to choose between Oxford and that school. So, but eventually it was not that difficult for me. What I wanted with my MBA was clear to me, and that diversity was provided by Oxford. That is not provided by most of the US schools also. So that was clear for me in the beginning, and also it was Oxford. I mean, you know about Oxford since you were a little child growing up in India. You always fantasize about going to Oxford. So it was a no-brainer as far as I was concerned.
I think I don't have much to add. I think I'll stress the other points that, to me, being in closer to my region, the Middle East, was an important factor. So the US was not an option. Also, the 1 year, other schools in Europe have 2-year programs, but Oxford is one of the few with a 1 year program. And of course, the wider university being in here, there's just so much knowledge, and it's the diversity within the business school is great, but the wider university and the people you meet in the wider university gives you a completely different experience that's unique to Oxford and wouldn't be in other business schools in Europe.
Can I just add to that?
Of
I
course.
feel like the diversity isn't just the number of countries you come from. I think it's, just meeting people who used to work in industries that are not very closely related to business and who can bring that kind of like, and I say business as in like finance, accounting, like the traditional business functions. Like everyone here just has life experience that they're willing to share and they want to share. So I think we all end up learning from each other off hours, like at lunch and just in conversation as much as we do in class. So.
Like we have in our class, we have from lawyers to neurosurgeons, to from social impact leaders to entrepreneurs to investment bankers. So you get to learn a lot from anyone you sit and talk to. That is a big thing that I think is.
And also being a 1 year program was kind of an advantage of Oxford at first, but now I kind of do regret that it's only 1 year. I'm already suffering that it's going to end.
I know, going by so fast, and it's been 2 weeks.
Fabulous. We didn't pay them to say all that wonderful stuff just then. I'm sure we'll come on to some things that they might have prepared differently, or things that are frustrating. In fact, you're all from quite warm climates, so maybe the weather has been terrible of recent weeks, so you're probably struggling all with that.
Not at all. In fact, I love this weather. I mean,
too, yeah.
I almost get I almost on Friday we had sun, and I was almost in a bad mood because of the sun. I really love the weather, but I'm kind of weird. So, but one thing I do miss is I don't feel that people hug enough, and I just want to hug people, and I don't know.
I think
It's like, can we hug? Just please, I need some connection.
I didn't find that problem.
Right. Well, we'll move on from the hugging. It's a very friendly community here at Said. So,
Yeah, it is. But yeah,
Barbara's bringing the warmth to the cohort. So,
yeah. I'm just aching everyone.
Well, can I spin that into so I think that's something that a couple of my colleagues and I have talked about, of how you learn different cultures just based on how many different cultures you are exposed to. And that goes from everything from having so the way the program is broken up, you are assigned into groups of 6 that are your study groups, and my study group, none of us, our first language is English. So in that kind of sense, you end up seeing how different cultures approach learning, and just like how vocal people are, tends to sometimes be a reflection of where they're from, how they engage with a wider group. So I think in terms of creating business leaders that can span cultures, at least my study group is very much like a microcosm of that, of what the entire global business community is like.
Amazing. Great. So being as the people listening in on here, I'm sure you're all at very different stages of the journey, but I think if you're listening into this kind of session, you probably fall into that being prepared, you're researching, you're trying to figure out if either an MBA is for you or if this school is for you. And so I think, as I think Ambashka said at the beginning, they are at the beginning of their experience. So it wasn't too long ago that they were in your shoes. It would be really good to sort of speak a little bit around the application process. So maybe sort of starting with, one of the biggest things that's top of mind for a lot of people is the GMAT or the GRE. We don't have to go into detail, but perhaps we could have each of you speak to how you sort of approach that preparation. It's obviously different for everybody. So perhaps focusing on GMAT or GRE, which one you took, how you approach that, and any sort of maybe tips or advice you would give.
So my only advice would be, don't do what I did with the GMAT, because my whole application was a bit last minute, and I was working and I didn't want to tell work that I'm applying to school, so I had to do it on Christmas on the 25th, and the deadline was I think 10 days after that, and it was just too much pressure because I only did it once. So my advice would be, try to do the GMAT early and give yourself a chance to get a better score.
I could build on that. So I also only took the GMAT once. And my experience was that I had studied for the GMAT in the beginning of 2018. And I took a course, a very full program. And then I just got a new job, and I was like, business school is probably gonna have to wait a year or two. And then I decided, why did it have to wait a year or two? So I signed up for the GMAT a month before the application was due. I took the GMAT, and I was like, if I do well, I'll go on with my application. If I don't do well, I won't. And then I'll wait a year and I'll apply again. And I think the first thing is to just, be cognizant of the mistakes that you're making and try to learn from them. But also realize that, don't go in panicked. The GMAT is just one part of your application. And I think who you are as a person, the experience you bring, your previous educational background, everything that the admissions people have on their website, all takes into account, as part of your whole application. So prepare and do your due diligence, but that's not the only thing.
One thing that I did was I gave a lot of mock tests before GMAT. So every time I gave a mock test, I knew where I am lacking, on which part of the GMAT, whether I'm lacking in English, sentence correcting, a particular quant section. So I went back and studied that again and then gave the mock test again. So I was able to track myself that whether I'm improving or not. And I think that is one thing that helped me a lot.
I'm very prepared.
Yeah.
So the first thing I'd say, like for me, the math was I was a bit off because I'm a lawyer and I hadn't studied any math for like 15 years, I don't know. So even more, 17 maybe. Well, I don't know. But what I did, and it did help me a lot, was getting the Manhattan Prep books. So that helped me a lot. After I also got the official preparation from the GMAT website, and there you can find the exercises. So that is really good preparation. But if you don't have the foundation, I would suggest you to use the Manhattan Prep. And once you get the foundations done, you can go through the exercises from the official guides. And I also bought the mock tests. So I think it's a really good thing because you can monitor your errors, and then you can go back and understand exactly what you need to improve. And yeah, the questions are basically the same. Once you get to a point of studying, you kind of figure out that they are very similar in its structure. So yeah, if you take some time, I think you can do a good job.
Excellent. So we do, I think the only thing that probably isn't diverse about this group is that all four of them took the GMAT. We are definitely seeing a rise in GRE takers. So if anybody's sat listening in thinking, well, I've done the GRE or I'm going to study the GRE, we absolutely take both of them. We do also just a little tip whilst we're chatting. We do have just recently got access to a free GMAT practice test. It's an online simulator that you can do through our website. It's got 3 test options: micro, mini, or full. So by all means, I do recommend using that. So it comes under the how to apply section on the MBA homepages on the website. So just as a little tip for anyone wanting to do a little micro simulator to get started. So you talked about obviously, Veronica, you touched on sort of the other elements of the application. Perhaps we could just go around and aside from GMAT, that is arguably sometimes the biggest thing that stops people applying, when it came to the other elements, what do you think sort of made you successful? What do you think sort of stood out for you in your application?
Okay, so I'm going to be very bold here and admit that I did not break 700 on the GMAT, which I think is something that when I applied to Oxford, I was like, I'm for sure not getting in. And I know that like the median score isn't like, I mean, I wasn't like far from the median, but it was one of those things that I was like, it's going to count against me, right? So if you're in that boat, or if you end up in that boat, don't be discouraged. For me, I think the personal essays were really important. So if the questions are the same, the question that we had was, what is a statistic that really shocks you and why? And what are you going to do about it? Yeah. And for me, I wrote about marketing, but and how the industry has just changed a lot in the past few years. And I think having a topic that I was genuinely passionate about really showed in my interview, and I was fairly knowledgeable about it and was like excited to talk about it. I think the interview was also a big part of it. And then previous academic experience, I did pretty well in undergrad as well.
Yeah. So my advice will be do a lot of research, talk to a lot of people who are current students of Said, or who are previous students of Said, the alums. So you get to know what's happening inside of the business school right now. And then you can identify that what are the areas you can contribute to in the school. And if that comes out in your application, that looks good, that you know what this school is, what this school stands for, and how you can contribute to the school. So talk to a lot of students. If you send a LinkedIn request to anyone, and please send it with a note that why you are sending this request. So I think everybody here will be able to help you So talk to a lot of us and try to find out that what is your place in this business school. That will help a lot.
Your inbox on LinkedIn is going to be on fire. What did you just do?
I think, yeah, with regarding the question, I think compared to other business schools, Oxford has a very unique question that doesn't really want you to stress on your professional experience as much as they want to know who you are. With other business schools, it's more about writing about your achievements, and but this question, I don't know if it's still the same, but it really gives you an opportunity to show who you are, and throughout the application itself, you can write a lot about your experience. And also, there's another supplementary optional essay that I would recommend if you think that there's a certain weakness in your application and there's a good reason for it, that you write this essay and address it there.
Sorry. So for the supplementary essay, like mine, sorry, Barbara, to just completely jump in. But I didn't write it about a weakness. So because my essay was so focused on a work view, I used my essay to talk about who I am as a student and just a little bit filling in kind of those lines. So I think in general, Saeed really does care about the people that go here as opposed to just like the intellectuals that go here. So I think, you know, if that doesn't come through in any other part of your application, it also might be a good place to infuse it.
Well, actually, for me, the GMAT was never like the most important thing, to be honest. So I just knew it was something kind of important, and I don't feel actually that I did my best. I didn't work my best to get a awesome GMAT score. So I got a 650. But I was never really, I never really felt insecure. I guess I just, I felt like I had an interesting profile. I have a lot of professional experience. I speak several languages. I had been to several countries. And I just, the thing is, and that there's not really a secret. If you own your story, if you know who you are, if you know what you're doing, it's just it's gonna come out and people are gonna see. And here inside, the feeling that I get is that the school really cares about who you are and what can you bring, what inputs can you be bringing to class, and how can you contribute to this community as a whole. And we all know that studying for the GMAT, like anyone, basically anyone, if the education is a priority, anyone could get an awesome score. I don't think that that's the main thing at all. And I'm really glad that I think I'm in the right place, because in my interview also I had a great connection. We had a great exchange. It was really personal. It was really direct. It was almost kind of emotional. So it's just, yeah, if you know who you are and if you own your story, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine. Don't rely on GMAT. If you have a 720 and you have nothing to say, I don't know if your chances are great either.
So just a couple of comments from me, and following up on the comments that you guys have made. So I think some really great comments there. I think, you know, it is important to realise that, you know, we are flexible, you know, on the GMAT, GRE element. You know, the range often in our cohort will run from the low 600s up to the, you know, the very highest scores. And that is because everybody does bring a different story and has different elements of their application which will be strong. And Veronica made a good point. You know, she was very honest in saying that her GMAT, you know, wasn't the median but was close, but she had a really good undergrad. And so that's, you know, important that, you know, and I'm sure probably with Barbara, GMAT was still, you know, really good, but more of a sort of solid score. But there were other elements of her application which will have made her really, you know, stand out. So it is not absolutely true that you can have, you know, the best academic scores in the world, but if the rest of your application lacks purpose and it lacks really sort of authenticity and honesty in terms of why you want to do this and what you want to gain from it, it may fall over and not be successful. Just obviously, as again, I mentioned you're all at different stages of that journey. This year we have removed the statistic or trend essay question. The only written element of the application, of the actual online application, is the supporting statement. So that's 250 words.
There's no essay anymore.
No, but there's another element, Ahmed. You wait for it. You will be pleased you had the essay. Yes. So, they're all getting excited now of what it is. So let me tell you. So there's the 250 word supporting statement. What else you would want to let the admissions committee know about you. And the written element has been replaced with an online assessment. I would strongly recommend that if you are applying this year, that you dial into one of our application tips webinars, because I don't want to spend at length discussing that now, but just to give you a sort of simple overview, it's a 30-minute online assessment. It's a tool with which you can practice as many times as you wish. It's built up of 2 video motivational style questions and 2 competency stroke scenario based questions, with a small timed written piece, which is very abstract, almost quite sort of wild card kind of questions that you totally cannot prepare for. So I would sum up the online assessment as a very much a get to know you exercise, where we obviously get to see you on camera. So we get to see your personality and your passion come through in, both why you want to come here and potentially a bit more about you in terms of how you handle certain scenarios. But please do dial into an application tips webinar, and please do read the FAQ section of the MBA pages. It will help you understand how the online assessment is broken down. So they all seem like they want to reapply again. They're all smiling at me and really excited by the prospect of an online assessment.
I just kind of feel sorry for them.
It is fine. You will all be fine. Okay, so you're all here now. We're entering into the UK winter. You've got a hectic schedule. You've had a week of orientation, a week of hectic careers engagement, and you're now, headlong into all of those core courses with a, packed schedule, and then everything that happens outside of the business school in the wider university. So I'd love to sort of get from you a little bit about your, your first impressions, what you've been spending your time on, maybe outside of the business school curriculum, anything you'd like to share, really.
I can go first. So one thing that did surprise me, I mean, I knew it was going to be hard work, but it kind of surprised me. Like we have classes basically every day, all day long, and then we got a bunch of things to read for the classes the other day. So I don't know how these people are doing, but my life has been basically come to class and go to library and study until you basically fall asleep and then sleep and do it all over again. Okay, but I'm trying to now. I think it's just maybe it's the period. I'm trying. Yeah, I'm really getting adapted to the routine. But I do plan to find some time for myself to exercise and things like that. But it is a serious work. If you want to commit to prepare to the classes, of course you can just come to the classes and I don't know, don't prepare. But it's not why you're here, right? I mean, I'm here to learn, so I'm trying to, I'm just trying to do everything I'm supposed to, and it takes a lot of time, like the cases and stuff. But I'm really happy to do that because I like studying, so I'm happy with it. But yes, it's a lot. So right now, what I'm trying to do this first term is, besides all the academic things, I'm trying to engage a lot with the Career Development Center. They have a lot of things going on and programs, and you can get one-to-one coaching time. So I'm trying to invest my time on this in the first term to kind of structure my pattern, to like maybe in the last couple of terms be ready to start applying for jobs. So that's one thing I'm also dedicating to in this first period.
So what I'll add is, of course, the academics are, I wouldn't say challenging, but I'd say demanding, from not really exams or anything, but just a lot of readings and participation. And it just depends on you. I think each MBA has his own path. My advice would be every single day there's so much happening, whether it's from an academic side, from careers, from social life, sports, uh, Oxford Union, whatever. There's so many events every day. So my advice would be come knowing what you want to get out of this experience, and just draw your own path, and don't just give in to the pressure of trying to do everything, because you can't.
What kind of things have you been doing then, Ahmed?
What have I been doing? I went to the union a couple of times. I get to meet the other MBAs outside the business school, see the other side of people. Eating. Well, food is not great in Oxford, to be honest.
I like the food.
I don't think it is.
I like the food.
Yeah, I like the food.
Depends. Like if you like bland food, you really like food in Oxford.
So what surprised me most was how much integrated Said is with the bigger Oxford University. So it's not like you are just in your business school. There's so many things to do in the wider Oxford University also. There are many clubs that you can join in the Oxford University. There's Oxford Union, where every week some CEO or Nobel Prize winner, somebody is
Like
coming to speak. Yeah, president. Every day somebody is coming to speak. So you can, if you're interested in that, you can go there. You can ask them questions. A lot of people from our cohort have gone onto the stage and asked questions to them. So you do not get to ask questions to CEOs and Nobel Prize winners every day, but here in Oxford you do get that opportunity. The thing is, it is not about what to do; it's more about what not to do, because there are so many things to do, and you have to choose where your passion lies, or where which will help you the most. So, like I am involved in there are 3 labs that Said offers. One is finance lab, one is social impact lab, and one is consulting lab. So consulting,
and ideation lab for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and for entrepreneurs there is a completely different Oxford Foundry, where all entrepreneurs can go ideate their ideas, can work with new ventures. So if you are an entrepreneur, this is one of the best places to be. But I'm talking in general business sense. It offers like I'm in the finance lab, and you have to be, and it happens after the classes on Monday or Tuesday. So you are in the school till 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. You get to meet MDs of biggest firms in the world, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley. You get to network with them. And consulting lab is open for everybody. So if you're interested in consulting, you can get engaged with the consulting lab. And then the social impact lab. I'm not in that, so I won't be able to speak at length about that. But the social impact lab also. And then the student council. You can stand for positions of co-chair. Like I stood for finance officer, and there are plenty of positions if you want to get involved in the student council. Apart from that, we have 7 Oxford business networks, which span from global business, finance, consulting, climate, technology, and entrepreneurship. So the results, we have already gone through the election process. The result will be announced in 2 or 3 days. So once those OBNs are formalized, I am thinking of getting involved in 1 or 2 of those OBNs. So according to your career interests, you can get involved in particular OBNs. They organize seminars with the industry people. They bring in people to talk to you, and there's plenty of things that OBNs are involved in according to your career choice. So yeah.
Wow.
Can I jump
Sure.
I guess the main takeaway is whoever you are, whatever you want, there will be a place for you.
Yes.
And in Oxford, there's many things going on in the university and in the school, and I mean, just you'll find yourself here somehow.
So just some anecdotes. So Barbara was saying she's going to find time to work out. Last week, I tried. So I was telling Bhaskar and Ahmed before the panel, but I signed up for a yoga studio and ended up canceling my class last minute because the CEO of LinkedIn was at the union, and I was like, okay, well, I can't miss that. And then the next night, the former president of Brazil, CEO of Coca-Cola, and this AI lab that they have here called the Creative Destruction Lab, all were meeting at the same night at the same time. So just for you to see, and the Goldman Sachs Global Shire was here. So it's just like those are the kinds of decisions that you have to end up making, and they're hard decisions to make, but kind of a great problem to have, if you ask me.
So you still haven't been to yoga?
I've been to yoga twice in 3 weeks, which is not the best. But in terms of things to get involved with, I did join the rowing team at my college. I have never rowed before, so kind of one of those Oxford things that I felt, if not now, when. So
Well, I do suspect that that Said Business School does that to us on purpose, in order for us to learn how to manage our time. So I guess if we're learning, if we're taking something away from this MBA, is time management. I mean, this is crucial. I think, it's about making choices every day.
So one thing I didn't add was, if you are into sports, there is a sporting club for any sport you have ever heard, or even if you haven't heard the name of any sports, it's here in Oxford University. So you can get involved if you want to get involved in a particular kind of sport. So you can join that sports club. They have practices, they have tournaments. Annually we compete with Cambridge. You can get into that team. So people are involved in rugby, soccer, cricket, badminton. I don't know.
It's really, it kind of runs the gambit in terms of the experience you need to have. So you can, if you're a seasoned pro, you can join those sports and balance it with your coursework. If you're new to something, you can also do that. I did want to touch a little bit about the Entrepreneurship Center. So I am not what one would call an entrepreneur, but here they have this great word for intrapreneur. So if you want to innovate within a company, so I found my place at the Entrepreneurship Center, and I'm involved in the ideation lab, which kicks off today. So I can't tell you too much about it, other than it's really, we're a place where you can come and workshop ideas that preps you for your final project in the entrepreneurship realm. And then the thing that surprised me most about Oxford, and I did want to touch on this, and you might laugh at me again, but one of the things that I was really worried about at first is about just the culture in general of Oxford. I think you hear about the prestige and like the academics who go here, and I was just expecting the people here to be very uptight, I guess is the best way to put it. And what really has surprised me is just the fact that our class is full of incredibly smart people, but everyone is very humble and open and friendly. And I feel like, and I think you guys can all back me up here, is that even though we've been here a month, it feels like we've known each other for a lot longer than that, because everyone does want to get to know each other and is so genuine in terms of that family and communal feel. It's 300 of us, but it feels like it's significantly smaller just based on the personal connections we've made.
Fabulous. Okay. Well, it'd be great. I've got one final question, but it'd be great if you could start sending through any questions you have as an audience. Obviously, if you can make them, as general or specific as you wish, that we can then pose to the guys here. My last question, I'd love to, I'm sure as people are researching, they're reading about, Said Business School within the University of Oxford and this whole mystery of getting a membership to one of the Oxford colleges. You've obviously only been here a few weeks, but perhaps you could just speak to how you see the college network coming into your experience, maybe which college you're in and where you're living in the context of that college situation would be quite helpful, just on a sort of practical level. So
sure. So I'll say my advice to start with, I'll say don't stress a lot about your college. From your research, you might be inclined to think that some colleges are nicer than others, but I guess each college is very unique, and at the end of the day, it gives you a different experience compared to meeting MBAs. You meet people who are PhDs in history, chemistry, public policy. So it really gives you a wider network, and you feel like you have two very intimate networks. So I'm in Kellogg. It's Oxford's newest college and biggest college. Maybe it's not the newest, maybe the second. I thought it.
Green Templeton's 2007. Oh,
really?
wow.
Oh, Kellogg is 1990. Okay, so it's Oxford's biggest college by number of graduate students, and get involved with colleges. There's a dinner every night in a lot of colleges, lunches, events at the college. So there's a lot happening with the colleges as well. And even if you don't get the college you wanted or you think you like, you'll find your place in your college and in other colleges.
Can I just back this up for a second? So for those of you who don't know, there are two main components to being an Oxford student. So one is being a student here at Saïd Business School, if you're getting your MBA. And then the second is your membership to a college. So one, in the way I see it, is Saïd is responsible for your education in terms of your actual degree and the classes that you take to fulfill that degree. And then you have your college, which is pretty much everything else. So that is going to be where you sign up for the sports teams that you want to take. That's going to be where your dining hall is. That in a lot of senses is going to be where you live if you do get college accommodation. So you have this community of MBAs that are here. But then you also, to Ahmed's point, is like you have this entire other community as well. So if you get into the business school and if you get into this program, you will get into a college. It might not be your first choice college, but every college has, its own amazing benefits, its own kind of upsides. So don't stress too much about that. But they are kind of two different entities, and you will be a part of both. And I'm in St. Catherine's College, which is a newer college. I believe it is only formally known as St. Catherine since the 60s, but it has been around for longer than that.
Well, I'd say the college is the Harry Potter kind of thing.
Yes.
So it's just amazing. I mean, it's just amazing. I didn't really think about it prior to the MBA, but getting this opportunity of being part of a community that has nothing to do in principle with the business school is very enriching. So I didn't get to pick my college because I applied in the 4th round, so there wasn't any time for me to choose. So they just picked one for me, which is St. Anne's. It's kind of a new college as well. I think we have 150 graduate students, and actually the Saturday all the colleges had, I think it was all the colleges, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all the 38 colleges in Oxford were going through matriculation. So just thousands of students in the streets in our little black gown, and it was just magic. Just come to Oxford, guys. Just come.
Yeah. So I am in Green Templeton College, which has a lot of management and medical students. I don't know how those two meet, but when you are there, you get to meet a lot of medical students. So the other day I met a student who is doing MPhil in medical anthropology. I didn't know what that was. He explained his research to me and what he's studying about. Then I met a PhD student who is doing research in radiotherapy for cancer patients. So you meet a diverse kind of people whom you may not get to meet in the business school. So it's like the diversity in business school, and then it becomes even more diverse when you go to college. You meet masters in public policy, sociology students, and I don't know, you just name a course and you will find a student in most of the colleges. So yeah, that is great.
Yeah, I think the mix with Green Templeton comes from the fact that there was
Green
College and then Templeton College, and they merged together. Just to mention on Green Templeton, it is the college that of all the colleges that has the biggest number of MBAs, typically around 60 to 70 of the MBA cohort. So just for the sort of benefit of clear explanation, because a question came through, I think Veronica explained it really nicely actually. Think of the business school as your place of work, your place of study. You will apply to Saïd Business School. Once you're then admitted to the business school and you have your offer and you decide that you're going to come here, at the point that you pay your deposit, we then send your file off to the college of your choice. As Barbara arranged, we explained we weren't able to give a choice in the last round this year. Yeah, so essentially your file will then get sent out, and that college, an academic fellow will actually see your whole file, and then very much like the sorting hat of recent books and movies, you will then receive a yes or a no from that college. But but you will absolutely end up with a college. So if that first choice doesn't select you, you will then get selected by another college. They're all incredibly different. What is true is that they're all within, you know, sort of a 20-minute radius of the business school. So you will find that throughout the year, you will spend a lot of your day at the business school, and then you may go to an event or a dinner at your college. You may go to the Oxford Union. You may go to a speaker event at a wider department of the university. But everybody is living this very sort of intense 1-year experience within, you know, what is very much a university town in terms of the surroundings. So just to go over some of the questions that we've had come through, and maybe this is a little bit early for you to answer, but perhaps just from initial impressions, do you think there's opportunities to get involved in things going on in other academic departments? Have you as yet experienced anything or know anybody who has sort of reached out to other?
Yeah, so some people are getting involved with the computer science department because they're running Python courses. So on Oxford Internet Institute. So some of the courses are free in other departments also. So, but the problem is you have to find time to do that. So if you can find the time to do that and you have the commitment to do that, yes, there are.
There's also the language centers.
Yeah,
people are teaching different languages.
Oxford Language Center where you can learn almost most of the languages. But again,
yeah, but just to add on that, as of now, I don't believe those classes count toward your degree. So it is kind of just a hobby. Like if you would like to take the classes, if there's a chance, then you can, but it's in addition to your schoolwork. It's not it's not part of it.
Yeah, so it would be through, you know, you just being interested and going to audit a class as opposed to you gaining it for credit. Yeah, good point. It's good thing to mention. Anything else to add from you guys? I would say just so from having been in recruitment and admissions for a few years and having interacted with a few cohorts, I would say other departments that I've known people to interact with is the Blavatnik School of Government. Oxford is very well known for and very famous for its work in the public policy space. So there definitely could be some exceptional kind of conferences and speakers throughout the year there. The other name that often pops up and is becoming, you know, certainly more of interest to students is the Oxford Martin School, that's doing a lot of work you know, around the environment and a lot of the problems that the world is facing at the moment. So that's definitely another one. You know, clearly a lot of your time is going to be spent, however, within Said, but I do think the school does a very good job of interacting, you know, with the wider university and bringing people from the wider university in as well. Somebody with a question here, so they're not going to have their application ready before our second deadline, which is November. The third round is in January, and then we have another round in April. Perhaps you could just, you know, they're asking if it alters their chances of admission. Perhaps you could just speak a little bit more holistically as to sort of when you applied. You're obviously here, so it worked out, but perhaps just from a preparedness sort of point of view, any comments you'd have around the sort of round in which you apply and what led you to apply in the round you did.
Yeah, so I mentioned this a little bit briefly earlier. I did not expect to be applying for this year's cohort, so I applied round 4 upon realizing, bless you, that I was just going to do my best and see where it landed me. Going at it again, I would have tried to apply round 3, mostly because the turnaround between well, round 1, great, but like I think just I would have tried to do it a little bit sooner, point being just because leaving my job, packing up my apartment, that was quite a lot to do in the span of a couple months.
So I wanted to apply in round 1, but I realized that my application was not ready by the deadline. So I applied in round 2. So my advice would be, if your application is not ready, if you think that you can add more to your application, then you can delay it by 1 round, but try to apply before round 3, because it's not that if you apply to round 3 you won't get in. A lot of students in our cohort are from round 3 and also from round 4, but from your own, if you apply by round 3, it gives you more time to get prepared for Oxford, because you get 6 to 7 months to do all the visa things and other things, and also to wrap up your previous life to get into this life. It gives you more time. So try to apply by round 3. But if you cannot apply, then a lot of here, there are 2 people here who are from round 4 also. It's not that you cannot get in, it just increases your chance if you apply by round 3. Yeah, and a lot of scholarships are also, they are till round 3. So if you apply till round 3, you are eligible for a lot of scholarships. Some of those scholarships are not present in round 4. So that is something to consider.
Yeah, I think I applied round 3 as well, and I was in your shoes thinking that, oh, I'm late, but admissions here told me that no, your chances are equal to the other rounds. And I think clearly from the discussions I've had with the cohort, I haven't met a lot of people who applied round 1. But yeah, if you can do that, it would be great. But don't stress about it. Whenever your application is ready and whenever you're ready.
Oh, I probably not very a good example. So yeah.
You were round 4 as well.
I applied on the very last day.
I applied on the last day too.
Yeah.
Good
Well, so basically when I started to apply for an MBA, I was kind of too late in the process already. So I started to study for the GMAT. I think it was November. I thought of applying in January, but then I didn't have time to take the GMAT. So yeah, I just left it to the 4th round, and it's just positive. We're just being positive, and I guess if it hadn't worked, I would just try again. And yeah, I didn't really stress too much.
Owned your story.
You owned your story. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And I got a scholarship in the 4th round.
Okay, well, Barbara is a really great example. I would just add a couple of comments from a recruitment admissions angle. So we absolutely have ended up with a wait list in the 4th round in the last 3 admission cycles. So it is competitive to get in that last round. I would just add that. So we've got 50% of our panel that got admitted in the last round. So this is just by chance. But I would say, we do have a wait list, and of that wait list, that often can be divided into 2 camps when we get to the end of the summer, in that some of those people will then receive a straight offer for the next year. That's certainly what has happened in the last 2 cycles. And then some people, sadly have been at that point rejected, having to face reapplication if they want to reapply. So I think, definitely the message I would leave you with is your chance of admission is equal from round 1 to round 3. Definitely for more funding opportunities, they do come in the first 3 rounds. But if the absolute rule of thumb is that you apply when you feel you've got the best possible application that you can give, regardless of the deadline. So I think that brings us pretty much to a close with just 2 minutes remaining. So I think thank you all of you for sharing your insights. So hopefully Barbara gets out of the library.
In time for yoga class. I'm planning to
Veronica needs to get to yoga, and Ahmed needs to find some
Good food.
And yeah, Fashkar, you obviously had.
He has it all figured out.
He's got it all figured out. So I hope you got your chair role as well.
Yeah.
In the as finance officer. But thank you so much, all of you, and thank you to those of you for dialing in as well. If you are applying in round 2 next week, I wish you the best of luck. If it's further down the road for you, then continue with your research, and I'm sure you've picked up on some great tips from the group here today. And with that, we will say thank you and goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.